Alright everyone, RJ here. Welcome back to the channel. And today I'll be doing a speed test comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. So let's get it started. Okay, so this should be a very interesting speed test, seeing that these phones are very similar spec, and I will give all the information out here in a little bit. Now, the A14 5G did release here in 2023, and the A23 released back in 2022. So we got, it's going to be very interesting to see this here. But just taking a brief look here at the phones, I like the A14. I like how it's designed. Has more of a modern, S23 vibe of the design here, other than this awful material back here on the back. It looks really nice. Now, the A23 has more of a matte finish back here. It does got an extra camera lens. It has that little camera bump around here as well. Both of them do look nice, and I like the way both of these phones here do look. Now, let's go ahead right now and start out with a boot up test. Now, these here are by Metro by T-Mobile, so you will see that animation, of course, so it may not be 100% accurate here, but the side-mounted fingerprint scanner here on both is the power button. Let's just go ahead and locate them right quick like, and we'll start these up in 3, 2, 1, now. Alright, so the A14 starts up first. We'll put these right here, and when these phones turn on and everything, I will give you the specs of both phones. Like I said, they're very similar. I'll keep this as short as possible. This may be a little bit longer, giving you the specs and everything, but I do want to kind of just lay it out there for you. So we're already at the Metro screen here on the A14, and this one right here just kind of sitting here at the moment. So we'll wait a minute here, and yeah, the A14 5G did start up first. And we're waiting here for the A23. It's quite a bit slower, so definitely the A14 5G did power up much faster. So we're now here on the home screen. I want to give you just a few specs just to show you how similar these phones are. Starting off with the display, both of these phones have 6.6-inch PLS LCD displays. However, the A23 has a 120 refresh rate, while the A14 has a 90 Hz refresh rate. Both of them are full 1080 at 1080 by 2408. Both of them are 20:9 aspect ratios with a 400 ppi. Now, both of these run Android 13. Now, the A14 runs One UI Core 5.1, whereas the A23 runs full One UI 5.1, okay? Now, the differences in processors here. Now, of course, if you buy the A14 internationally, it comes with an Exynos processor, and who cares? But here in the US, we have the A14 runs the MediaTek Dimensity 700 octa-core processor, okay, which is a 5G chip, whereas the A23 runs the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 octa-core processor, also a 5G chip. And both of these have the same RAM and storage at 4 gigs of RAM and storage being 64 gigs. However, if you buy these phones unlocked, it comes in a variety of, storage and RAM configurations. Now, as far as the cameras go, both of them have a 50 megapixel wide-angle lens, aperture of f1.8. Both have 2 megapixel macro and depth sensors with aperture of f2.4, whereas the A23, that extra lens is a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, and both can record at full 1080 at 30 frames per second. Both have side-mounted fingerprint scanners. Both have 5,000 milliamp hour batteries, except for the A23 supports 25-watt wired charging, and the A14 supports 15-watt wired charging, so neither one of them extremely fast there. So as you can see, both of them there are very similar. You can look at the body design here and how the same teardrop notch, same size display, same resolution, but you got a Dimensity 700 from MediaTek versus the 695 from Snapdragon. So that's going to be very interesting to see. So, of course, just scrolling around here, both phones do feel just fine. One's at 90 Hertz, one's at 120, but honestly, it don't make that much of a difference. Both of them, do look very good whenever you're looking at the phone head on. The brightness should be pretty close to identical here, and they just look good, okay? I mean, I don't see a problem with either one of these phones. I'm not sure if the A24 is coming to the US. I have no idea about all of that, but yeah, both of these here, very similar. Okay, so all the apps are lined up for this speed test. However, I do want to show you a Geekbench 6 score before I get into it. So here are those scores. Okay, so the results are finally in, and we got a single core score of 684 and a multi-core score of 1836 on the A14 running the Dimensity 700 by MediaTek. And we got an 894 single core and 1961 multi-core with the A23 running the Snapdragon 695 processor. So about, less than 100 points in the multi-core, around 200 points difference there in the single core. Not too much difference there. But anyway, we'll go back home here. We'll go ahead and make sure everything is cleaned out. Now, I do want to say before I run this test that these tests are not scientific in any way, okay? They're ran for fun. Benchmarks are not to be taken seriously. It's just to give you an idea of opening apps side by side, running a Geekbench test to just show you the scores. But like I say, these here are not going to indicate how your phone's going to run on a day-to-day basis. Also, I had to switch out an application, Walmart for B&H Photo, because Walmart kept on popping up personal information about my accounts. I don't know. I could never get it figured out. So anyway, I changed that. So all that being said, yeah, all the apps are cleared out. So now we'll get started in with this test, starting now. Now it's ever so slightly to the A14, very close. Let's go into YouTube. That was the A14, took that one there. Let's open up the calculator, and even there, calendar. Slightly to the A14, let's go into the clock. A14, I think, had it just barely. Let's go into Amazon shopping. And very similar there between the two. I mean, the A14 may have took it barely, but it was just way too close. So anyway, let's go into eBay. And the A14 took that there. Let's go into Best Buy. And it looks like the A14 may take this one, but yeah, the A14 did open that one faster. Let's just kind of open up the products here. And as you're in here, it's going to be very similar, okay? Not much difference. Let's go into B&H Photo. And that was pretty even there as well. Push on photography. And you can see right there, that's very, very close, opening those up. Let's go into Twitter. And pretty close there as well. I would say that was pretty much a tie. That was, yeah, very close. Let's go into Instagram. And that was pretty close. I think the A14 barely took that one there. Let's go into Netflix. I believe the A14, yep, A14 took that one. Let's go into Hulu. And that was ever so slightly to the A14, just by a fraction. Let's go into Tubi TV. And that was slightly to the A14 there as well. Let's go into the Play Store. And pretty much even there on the Play Store, Asphalt 9. So a slight heads up there on the A14. Let's see if the A23 can catch up. And the A14 did start that up first. So pretty close. Let's go ahead and go into Dead Trigger. I believe the A14 is going to be slightly faster. Yep, just a little bit. Let's go ahead and push play. I hope that I'm hitting these at the same time. It's hard to do sometimes. But yeah, the A14 did take that. But of course, these kind of games right here, Asphalt, these, I play Call of Duty on both of these, Asphalt on both of these, and they play fine. I mean, they may be a little slow to start up, but they do play just fine. So let's go ahead and go into Temple Run 2. That was the same time, but it seemed to react faster on the a14 than the a23. But I believe the a23 is still going to beat it out, and it does ever so slightly. Let's just see by how much whenever it starts up here. Yeah, I mean, very close. Doesn't really even matter there. But you can see, backing out of those games, it was not like a smooth transition out of it. I mean, you got so many apps in the background with these processors, it just can't really handle it. So let's go ahead and go into Subway Surfer. And I press them at the same time. I'm looking at them, hit them at the same time, but one seems to just start up faster than the other, or one reacts faster than the other. But the a23 took that there. The a14 kind of got a little bit hung up. But there you go. I mean, they're not going to be powerhouses. You're not going to be able to open up and keep open 15, 16 apps in the background on these phones. You know, I mean, if you get the higher RAM models, higher storage models, you know, it may do a bit better. So, I mean, you know, I can go through RAM management, but we can go through a few of them here and just see how long it takes. Going into Subway Surfer, Temple Run 2. They were both open there. Going to Dead Trigger. And we are already starting to see a reload there in Dead Trigger. So I know Asphalt 9 is definitely going to reload. And it does there on both. Going to the Play Store. Okay. Tubi TV. This may reload here because it is kind of like a live TV along with, you know, yeah. So Hulu. There you go there. So they're holding. It's just, okay, had to reload there on both. Instagram had to pretty much reload there as well. Going into Twitter. Yeah, it's just, they're not going to be able to handle the reloads, okay, with the amount of RAM in these phones, okay. Like I say, if you go from 4 gigs to 8 gigs, you may see a completely different outcome on these two phones. If you buy these phones from like Metro, where they only offer one configuration for RAM and storage at 4 gigabytes of RAM, they both have 4 gigabytes of RAM plus virtual, but yeah. But anyway, just for giggles, let's go ahead and run a 3D mark test here on these. I'm very interested to see the Wildlife Extreme on how these are going to do. So I'll go ahead and start these up now, and I'll come back when they finish. Okay, so neither one or nothing to write home about. You got 324 here on the a14 and 358 here on the a23. With an average frame rate of 1.9 on the a14 and 2.1 here on the a23. And looking here, this done better than 5% of phones and 6% of phones. So, I mean, you know, nothing, like I said, they're not going to break any records, okay? They are not made to be powerhouse devices. These here are basically just going to be your average performers. That's going to work fine in everyday usage. You know, using social media, you know, taking that quick photo here and there. Battery life, you know, is going to be good on both 5,000 milliamp hour batteries. You know, the Dimensity 700 does hold its own against the Snapdragon 695. I mean, many people want to trash the Dimensity processors or the MediaTek itself, but honestly, they're holding their own. And, you know, like I said at the beginning of this test, or before I started the app opening test, that these are not scientific in any way, okay? You know, open an app side by side, one's going to take the win, or they're going to come out pretty much even. But it's how much you push your phone throughout the day. Neither one of these phones are going to be able to handle strenuous, you know, if you're looking for, you know, Galaxy S series or, you know, other phones comparable to that, you know, for performance, you ain't going to get it here on these phones, you know, especially phones you can get for these price tags. But if you want just a basic phone That's going to give you a good display because both of them, neither one of them are Super AMOLED, nothing like that. But they are full 1080. The screens do look good. They are crisp. They are clear. 90 Hz refresh rate here. 120 over here. You know, and they're going to be just good overall basic phones. So that's just my speed test comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. So, it's simple and informative in any way. Hit that like button. Any questions you may have, leave it down below. If you're new around here and not a subscriber, I encourage you to consider subscribing and clicking that bell beside it and turn it on to receive all post notifications of future videos like this and more. I would appreciate it. Y'all have a good one, and thanks for watching.